TV is dead. No. TV is changing. No. TV is in a new golden age. Wait, how does my TV even work now? Like and subscribe. That would be great, actually. Look, we've heard a lot lately about the endless rise of streaming services and how it's changing the way you engage with the shows you know and love. The box or the tube you used to watch, it doesn't really have tubes and they're not really boxes anymore. So are streamers the new cable or something completely different? And what are the effects on us? Let's find out. While we binge watch our latest episodes of pretty much anything across the vast libraries of your multiple streaming services, it's easy to remember that TV didn't used to look like picking up a book whenever you had time to consume. This is a very new occurrence, and the rate at which it's happening has been staggering to entire industries, and the effects are far-reaching. In 2019, nearly 40 million Americans ditched their cable package for what are called OTT services. OTT stands for over-the-top broadcast, which basically refers to internet streaming services, as opposed to OTA, which stands for over-the-air. This was all before the pandemic accelerated this trend with another 15 million ditching cable altogether. By 2030, we'll have gone from over 80% of households tethered to a wire to about 50-50. Think about that. Growing up, you didn't want to go watch TV at your friend's house without cable because you just have to bend those weird TV antenna to watch The Simpsons. Just 10 years later, and you can watch any episode Simpsons writers have even thought of. And watching cable just seems more like Grandpa's gig. That's a lot of change in a little amount of time. 70% of people have at least one streamer in their house. If you're a cable company, you're going to be nervous. With a third of people dropping their subscriptions, they're struggling to keep people in the game, unless you're over 50. That's why when you're watching The Feud with Grampy, there seems to be so many ads made just for him specifically. But even that is changing, as numbers show that even older age brackets are catching up and cutting the cord. Of course, it's especially true of younger viewers. Gen Z has no patience for wading through ads or channel surfing. They grew up with YouTube and gaming, where your content is always available. They know they can count on the content made by their favorite creators and build the variety they want, and the rest of us aren't far behind. The main driver behind it all? Price. Over the years, cable companies have repeatedly jacked up the price of service. The average cable consumer now pays over $107 per month, which has outpaced inflation for the last 20 years. Hidden fees, low perceived value, negative experiences with the cable guy, and it's not exactly a mystery why we've turned to streamers. Initially, $15 a month compared to that seems a steal at the dawn of the Netflix era, but as those streaming service contracts start to be divvied up between the streamers, that licensing is making it a little trickier to find your favorite show. Actually, that's the point. Exclusive content these days is the key to everything. Back when House of Cards launched on Netflix, it was a huge deal that a streaming service could land top Hollywood talent for a show that would only live online. Now Netflix is breaking records for its amount of Emmy nominations every year. Research from Roku finds that cord cutters are more experimental than the average TV viewer, meaning they're more willing to find content that suits them personally. Which means we're moving away from the TV water cooler chat about last night's episode, and increasingly into our own bubbles. It's no news to anyone that the rise of binging content has had a major impact on how much niche content is created. Just like Pringles, it's once you pop, you can't stop. This leaves us looking for more content similar to the kind that we just finished binging. Those rabbit holes are real though. The broadcast model was based on advertising revenue, so studios always had to make content with wide appeal. The more people watch, the more value to the advertiser. That's how you got shows like Friends and The Big Bang Theory, with generally broad, non-offensive storylines that allowed advertisers to take part. However, with the increase in audiences seeking what they like, that means there's no more mega audiences anymore, all watching the same thing. Think about how those water cooler conversations have changed. Do you talk about last night's episode? Or do you talk about, hey, what shows are you watching these days? Studios know that an engaged viewer is hard to find with so much competition, which is why companies themselves are having to define themselves as a brand, so you know what you're getting when you sign up. It's a race against time to make sure that each company can nab up the creative market share That is your brain. The reality is cable can't keep up. Their business models were based on giving you hundreds of channels, but the average viewer might only watch 12 regularly. Until recently, cable drove the entertainment industry's bottom line by getting money from both advertisers and subscribers. It was a war as companies with money could buy sports rights, movie rights, and series rights, which allowed them to increase their price to the cable companies who wanted them in their packages to up the price on consumers. It was just in 2001 that Disney bought the Fox Family Channel for $5.3 billion. But cable reached a tipping point in the 2000s. Domestic customers were tapped out, and a lot of shows were starting to kind of just look the same. There was less channel flipping or reasons for somebody to expand their cable packages. So people didn't. As streaming became more popular, creators wanted to carve out a space on the big new thing, which is why you see brands like National Geographic on Disney Plus or FX shows going to Hulu or Bell. Those brands realized that they could also make money off of their past catalogs on top of some of the new content with streamers, which is something that gave renewed life to older shows and thus became the basis of defining connected brands on the streaming services. You ever sit around and wonder why there's so much focus on interconnected superhero universes and intellectual property rights these days? That demand for new content is upending how Hollywood does business in almost every way. Think about it. For the first time, the largest entertainment companies are able to sell directly to consumers without anyone in the way. Studios used to have separate teams for TV and movies, yet those lines these days are blurring as TV pretty much looks the exact same as the quality we come to expect on the big screen. That's starting to have an effect on consumers now too, as over 50% are starting to get frustrated by the growing number of subscription services they have in order to watch everything they want to watch. Niche channels like the Food Network or TLC were always thought of as not having enough broad appeal on cable, but this kind of content succeeds on streaming because of the dedication of its audience. We all have friends obsessed with the Great British Bake Off, and honestly, we kind of encourage it because those cupcakes are the bomb. Cable isn't dead, but the push away from it has led money to be tighter, which is why it feels like all the cinematic, high-budget content is on streaming services, and the lower-cost, unscripted programs like reality shows, talk shows, and news are becoming a bigger part of the cable arsenal. Remember when MTV was music television? Well, Variety reported how in 2020 the network had almost completely become a non-stop channel of just one show. Ridiculousness. A famed skateboarder or comedian basically posts clips of folks online falling down, and that show took up 113 hours of the network's 168-hour lineup. It's because streaming also affected the music industry, literally changing the shape of songs and how bands connect. We'll discuss that in another episode, but in the end, music television didn't really have much music that appealed to everyone and so couldn't keep up. The rise of unscripted shows is due to the cost and expectation of viewers like you. As advertisers leave TV, it's harder to take risks with unproven shows that don't immediately draw eyes. With scripted narratives, it takes time to get into a show, which is why binge watching has become so popular. According to Forbes, only about a third of broadcast shows make it to a second season, and with ratings dropping so sharply over the past decade, the threshold for survival has gotten lower. But networks can't afford to embrace the same strategy as streamers because they have limited openings for new content on their schedule. The see what sticks to the wall approach won't work. For example, the show Snowpiercer was originally developed for TV and bounced from TNT to TBS, then back to TNT, but ended up only being successful while on streaming. This is the story of many shows who didn't immediately get noticed when it counted on people tuning in every week, as opposed to being found and binged. This is the new norm. Sports is the next frontier, but we'll save that for another video. As of making this video, Disney just snapped up Major League Baseball rights and La Liga Soccer for their ESPN streaming service, so keep an eye on this space, literally. For more on how these deals affect you, make sure you subscribe to Sponsored Thoughts, and if you learned something, give us a like. It really helps us out to keep educating folks on the hidden side of marketing, so thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.